That's better now.
Oh.
Go ahead. So look, I'm gonna edit this so y'all don't have to worry about whatever the mistakes are and stuff like that. It'll be
Edit. So what are we doing?
all right. So next week on the 27th, we are doing our lecture series, the second lecture series about what it means to be an Akan woman here in America.
Mm.
So I wanted to have 5 or 6 women, various ages and backgrounds, to who have adopted the culture to be able to speak to that. So essentially, what I'm gonna have you and Andrea do is pretty much just say, what does that mean to you? And I'll use that recording since you're unable to be there to as a way of jumping off the conversation, and then the other 3 panelists will also chime in on that. So it Nyoka, no, not you, Hassana Yaltayas' wife will record her. I was trying to get all your guys together just so it'll be done one and done, but it's all good. It's not a problem. So that's the idea. So we've adopted a con culture, and then we talk about the family, and we talk about a con, quote unquote, men and women. So the question is, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean in this society? And are we really a con? I mean, or we are just adopted a con culture, or adopted a con. So I'll give you my take. For example, my wife is probably more a con than me in a sense of genetically. She's Jamaican, and there's a bunch of Jamaicans that come out of that area. So she's probably more a con than me, but I've adopted the con culture as a philosophy and a lifestyle. And because I deal with the cultural beliefs, I consider myself an Akan person. But if you was to go to Ghana, they would just call me a white boy. So I mean, you take your pick. So I'm like, all right, it is what it is at this point. So that's the gist of it.
Yeah, I sent Mama Moore a very short recording based on what she told me, and I resonate a lot with some of what you said. You know, are we really adapting Akan culture here in the United States? And it's an excellent question. For me, my background is Jamaican, just like my mom. My background is Jamaican, and that's a lot of the things that I do in my household. My husband and I, we both do, is based on that Jamaican culture. And so inside of that, you'll find a lot of Akan um, nuances, a lot of Akan retention. The challenge also becomes we don't live in Ghana. We live here in the United States. And then you have those cultural nuances mixed with being African American, you know, where I was raised in the American school system. Like I grew up in the Bronx. I went to school, you know, college, everything here in America. So then you have all this mixture of all these different cultures. But I think what we want to do is make sure that we maintain our heritage and that our children know where we come from. And for us, that is Akan lineage, no doubt. And so because of that, we adopt the names. You know, all my children have Akan names. We adopt a lot of the cosmology, the bosum, the shrines, all of that. Um, but we don't live there. So when we go there and we're still learning the tradition, it is very interesting to see it unfold because some of the culture does not align with what we do,
Right.
you know, because of all the cultural mix up. So to say I am a Akan woman in America is it's more appropriate to say I'm not a 100% Akan woman here in America. I'm not. I'm mixed with, Jamaican tradition and culture, post-colonial, and U.S. tradition and culture, post-colonial.
Mm.
So recently, my husband was given a stool. He sits on a stool. He's a chief. So now that makes me Awo, which means I have a lot more learning to do. Like when we go to Ghana, literally, I will have to be sitting down in class to understand what my role is, to understand. And I know a lot of it is I'm the caretaker for the family. If the family needs food, I'm the one who's cooking it. If the family needs to be taken care of, I'm the one who's doing it. But I know that that can't happen alone. I know that I would have to have sisters and aunties and all of that in place, of which, you know, I'm attempting to have it in place here in Alabama and in Ghana when we travel there. So it's like double work in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'm also working on a piece that talks about us here. We get entitlements or we get instilled over in Ghana. And essentially, your allegiance is to taking care of that group of people that now you're the queen mother for, or the chief for, or whatever. And then I asked the same question, like, okay, well, we got people right here in America that are of this, but that need taken care of as well. So is it a benefit? What is the benefit? It's clearly a benefit to them to have African Americans or Black Americans or Blacks out of the diaspora to be instilled in those towns and villages, because you come with so much more and you're able to probably do a lot more than anyone there, even if you're just a developmental chief. So, but that's a whole nother subject and a whole nother topic, which I'm working on writing an article on that. Like my thoughts on it are we just being duped a second time, or is it
Um,
really a
you
benefit?
know, that's a really good question. And it takes a lot of thought. This proposal of being installed is not something that happened overnight for us.
Mm-hmm.
They have been asking for a long time. Like we have been developing these relationships for over 20 years. Like
Mm-hmm.
this is not hurry, come, hurry. What them say? Hurry up and come see. That's not what it is. Like we have been working and partnering and fostering relationships in Ghana for a long time. So for us, it's mutually beneficial
Mm-hmm.
because when we go there, trust, know, and believe that we are taken care of in ways that if we didn't have these things in place, then we would really get duped.
Okay.
You can feel like you can still feel like that. Don't get me wrong, right? Even with all the cultivation of relationship, you can still feel like you're getting to a lot because we're not fluent in the culture, we're not fluent in the language. It's a learning process. I may not be fluent in my lifetime, but maybe my children will, based on the relationships that we are cultivating, based on how we're moving as a family unit. So it's necessary to build those bridges. It's necessary. I think that we have to lean on our shrines, on our intuition to know who can we trust, who, will really make this foundation something that will last for generations and not just a fly by night type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've heard people say, yeah, I got installed, I come back, I get it, I have a title. I'm like, oh, do you know this person? Do you know that person? And they're like, no. I said, okay, you should meet that person in the community because that person is important.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who installed you didn't tell you about this important person in the community there? Like, that's concerning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you say Akan woman, there's so much more learning to do about that Akan woman. And there are a lot of things in the culture that I may not agree with. And they may look at me and say, you shouldn't do that. But here in America, I can do it. So then it becomes my choice, as to, what I'm going to do. And then are you going to pick and choose what you're going to do?
So, yeah.
Mm.
Wife, what are
These
your
are,
thoughts on?
yeah.
That's a lot. I will co-sign on everything Akui has just said, but my journey is a little bit different because I was introduced to the culture through you. And in the beginning, I was very young, and I've been always searching for something to grasp, something that felt like home, something that felt like this is where I belong. And the Akan culture was that for me. But when Kwesi came to me and said, what does it mean to be an Akan woman? I was like, I don't think I'm an Akan woman.
Mm-mm.
I might be practicing those ideals and following the culture and way of life. But I think if you go back far back in my ancestry, maybe my ancestors were sometime Akan because I'm direct descendant from Maroon, and we can go all the way back with that. But for me, my journey was a little bit different because when I first was introduced to this culture, I was in love with my husband. So whatever my husband said this was, I followed like a little puppy because I didn't know anyone. And when I came to New York, I didn't feel like the doors of welcome and knowledge were open for me. It was closed. I felt like an outsider. So for a long time, I had resentment and animosity because Kwesi was welcomed with open arms, and he was training for to be a healer or a priest or a kamfo, however you wish to call it, my husband. He was on a different path than I was. And for a long time, I felt like I was on the outside looking in. But I needed my children to be a part of this because at the end of the day, I knew this is where we fit in. This is where we belong. It just felt right. So I never considered myself an Akan woman in America. It was something that we adopted and that we were following. But for a long time, I had to realize that this is my way of life as well. And I don't necessarily have to wait for my husband to open the door. I'm an educated woman. Wait, I need to learn what I need to learn. And for me and my family, a lot of things come through dreams. And for the longest time, I was downplaying those dreams, but those dreams were leading me as to what I needed to do and how I needed to support my husband, who was going on the same path, but his journey was just different. And that took a while to learn and to understand and to accept that I have to seek out the knowledge that I feel like I'm missing. And when I opened myself up to that, then the culture just came in, flooding, almost, to where you had to keep your head above water, And when I started searching, I found that certain individuals opened their arms to me. And maybe it was my part of it feeling standoffish because I felt like I wasn't welcome. And I had something to do with that as well. But for me, just like you said, Mama Akuya, your children, and instilling that your children have those benefits and those accessories to the culture that we necessarily didn't have, but now they're here because of my husband and because of us and our community. Because I can't just say this journey is just me and my husband. It's not, because there is a community that is welcoming. There are people that are welcoming and that are loving and generous. So you can learn what you need to learn and be able to stand where you need to stand for yourself and for your family. A home, I needed to realize that it is for me as well. And if I'm not strong in a home, then no one else will be in my family. So I feel that I have adopted the Akan culture, and a lot of the things that, ironically, that we do in the culture is a distant relative of Catholicism. And I was raised Catholic, and I was also born of Jamaican parents. So the intertwine is uncanny, and it's not far apart from a lot. So I feel that my progression was a natural growth with me trying to seek out God and the ancestors. So it was a natural growth. I think I was already on that journey, not knowing it, already on the path and just didn't know it, wasn't willing to accept it and open up. That's why I always felt like I was searching. And one of the things that you said, Mama Akuya, in regards to your husband being installed, or even with my husband going to Ghana and getting new information. And it feels like, well, why didn't they tell you this in the first place? And why are we always piecing things together? Why can't they just, give us the information that we need to grow? But one of the things that Kwesi said to me was that why they don't know us from Adam. So why are they telling us our secrets? Why should we know their secrets? But I have realized that you might get a little bit of knowledge for them, but the Abosun will tell you the rest.
Yes.
And they will show you the rest.
Right.
So be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
But as Akan woman, I do not consider myself an Akan woman in America. I consider myself a Black woman in America, being open and exposed to what was already mine.
To African tradition, to this form of it. And I mean, I didn't talk about being an Akonfo, because I trained to be an Akonfo. I started training before I met my husband, but I met my husband while I was training. And the way how the Bosum and my godparents managed it, I have to say, I am really blessed. We are truly blessed, because, in Ghana, when you train, you're not meeting nobody. You are locked up. You're not exposed to and it's not like that here in America. And so here I am training. I met my husband. All the things that the Bosum set in place for us helped us to build a solid foundation. That is not a typical arrangement. It's not typical. Like, we need to write a book about how it went down, because people will say, what? But that's how I met my husband training, and Nana Surgery brought him to me. What do I say? Nana mi poucha. I don't want him as my husband right now. I'm busy training. Nana, I'm training. And he knows. But there was something about my spiritual growth and development that was also in line with my growth and development as a woman. That was also in line with my growth and development as a mother. And things happen the way that they did because they are divinely designed that way. So even though, yes, I started training, I started learning about Akan. I started learning about how to manage the Bosum. I learned, but at the same time, I was also going through a transformation of maturity inside of myself. And the Bosum helped to guide me through it so that, I can sit where I sit today.
And for me, I fought a lot through it. When Kwesi was training and I was at home with 3 babies, the Bassoon was trying to guide me through things, and I fought it left and right. No. But as soon as I freed my spirit and freed myself, it happened. But like I said, I fought all the way. I
Yeah.
fought all the way. But also in my own defense, I was following a young man who had just learned to tie his own shoes. So the way he looked at the culture then is different than how he sees it now. And I was still following that young version of my husband. So that's why I fought and I kicked and I screamed all the way through. But if I had taken the time to search certain things myself, then I wouldn't have been so ready to fight.
So resistant.
But what'd you say?
So resistant. That was the word that I think you was looking for.
Yeah, resistant.
You know, Nana Sankofa brought, during the COVID time, Nana Sankofa brought some very interesting messages, and we put it together inside of a study. And he, you know, based on the principles that he brought, the pillars that he brought, it's called Please Spirit. And some of the fight that you talk about, Mama Moa, the fight, that process helps you not to be so resistant. It's like it's a perfect segue into learning the culture. It's a perfect segue to opening yourself up to the tradition so that you don't come into the tradition with the fight. Because I hear you. I hear you. You know, being excluded, the way how people do things, being excluded, like this is your husband, you have children, and they're telling you you cannot be present for XYZ. And you didn't tell me this. I'm just saying. Because you didn't tell me this. But you know, you have to then work through trusting yourself. You have to work through trusting others. And it can really be a trip when you're home by yourself with children and no support. You can feel like, oh my gosh, what did I get into? So I like if we as a community put some things in place that are standard, it will help new people coming in to sort some things out before they start trying to learn about the culture.
Yeah, one of the issues with our Akan community is that we're all over the place. Like you're in Alabama. Like what only support that you could probably get is some encouragement and talk to and things of that nature. Maybe I expect to send you some money to help you or something like that. But that being in proximity to each other, I think plays a really big part in terms of creating that community. Even the New York community here, I mean, everybody's hustling, grinding. It's 9 to 5, going to work. This society keeps us grinding so much that it kind of the glue to make things strong is it's a fight. It's tough. It's always a fight because everyone's always grinding, trying to maintain the basics and stay afloat. So trying to form the cultural glue that we know we need in order to fight our adversaries is tough. But, you know, keep pushing forward. We got to do what we got to do.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily agree with that being tough because we can get together every Sunday for a comb. We can reach out and pick up the phone. Because if I had resources at that time, even if I had a resource in another state, the fact that I could pick up the phone would be a good thing. And I just didn't have any of that. So the resources might be far, but I think if the spirit is willing, the glue will be there.
This is also true. There's physical support though that is unmatched, that you can't get through this.
Yes.
You know, you
Touch
can't get through you can't get through the phone. So it's a bit of both. I agree with both of you. I agree that we can't get together like this and we can talk and get to know each other, because I don't think a lot of us know each other, like know each other,
Mm.
or want to know each other. I don't know. I'm sorry, but some of the Abusia have literally locked me out, like shut me out.
Yeah, I mean that's one reason for a comb Kessie, because like I don't get me wrong, I enjoy a combs, I enjoy going to them and things of that nature, but there's more outside of just the Acomb. We come celebrate the Bosoon, then we go home. So part of a Kessie is for us to get together, have these conversations, learn from each other, and to fellowship. Fellowship on this level as opposed to fellowshipping at a spiritual event. And most of the culture has been centered around these spiritual events that we're having. And those are high energetic times. A lot of things are going on, a lot of moving pieces. So you don't get a chance to sit down, talk to someone and say, well, oh, you got 5 kids, you got 4 kids, or how the kids doing? Or after their coma is over, you're hustling to get back to whatever designation you came from. So that's one reason for a comb Kessie, is so that we can have some uh, intricate or conversations, not just around the comb, but really around the culture, not around spiritual events, but around the culture more so than anything else.
Yeah, and around our lives, and how we navigate this, because we living in the belly of the beast. A lot of
Exactly.
us are teetering back and forth in the boardroom. We can't be a kind in the boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us can't. They'll look at you sideways. You can't wear your prints to work. They'll look at you sideways. You can't cover your head when you go to work. They will kick you out. And then we come home, and then we have on our lapas and how we dress. But this back and forth and teetering, that's not healthy. So how are we all managing that?
So
That sounds like a talk to me.
but that's when this year Comb Kessie is centered around that whole thing, what you just said. How do we live a comb in America? How do we do that? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis? So that's what Comb Kessie is going to be this year, and A to Z. Like, what does that look like for me? What does that look like for someone who's not um, doing the spiritual work, just a regular follower or practitioner? Those type of things. So, but with that said, I'm not going to keep you guys any longer. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you're welcome to talk. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you're welcome to talk, but in terms of the answers that we needed, we've captured that information. I'll
Good.
go back and edit it out and do that type of stuff, and I'll send it to you before I use it. I got 2 weeks. I'll do it before then. So,
Okay, that sounds good.
let me see. The 27th is it's a Friday. So yeah, well yeah, I
The
live there.
27th.
No,
Wow.
it's a
Saturday. It's a
Saturday.
Saturday. It's a Saturday.
Am I going to be here on the 27th?
I don't know. I think you're leaving this week and then you're leaving next week too, aren't you? You're going to your,
Yeah.
you said, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to stop all this flying, baby. Lord have mercy. This is your 4th trip this week?
This
Or
week, it can't be my 4th
this
trip
month,
this
this
week.
month, this month. We just came back from Georgia, so but all right. All right then. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
asking me.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
No problem. All right. I'm gonna stop the recording. Okay.